Hello, my name is Reiko Osoroshi. On this channel, I narrate Japanese ghost stories. Today, I will narrate Ghost Story The Mentor series Part 8 inches, The Mentor, The Man Under the Bed, Me, and Yoko-san. The previous story and Part 1's URL are provided in the description box, so please take a look. The Mentor, The Man Under the Bed, Me, and Yoko-san. I'm going to exterminate the man under the bed, said my senior, who had taken refuge in a family restaurant during a winter without air conditioning in his own room. Is that the urban legend? I asked. The man under the bed. It was a reasonably famous urban legend, and I had seen it discussed on television a few times. Yes, that's the one. I'm going to get rid of it. My senior's eyes sparkled with determination, an unusual amount of enthusiasm in his voice. But, senior, weren't you in your futon? Whose place did it appear in? My senior downed his refillable coffee in one go and stood up. I'm heading to the scene. Are you coming with me? It was 9 p.m., a bit early to go to sleep. All right, I'll go with you, I replied. My senior smiled. By the way, I covered my senior's meal expenses. As we approached the scene, I began to understand the source of my senior's enthusiasm. The road looked familiar, and so did the apartment building. It fell into the reasonably upscale category in this area. We boldly entered and made our way up to the third floor. Probably the corner apartment. As expected. Is it Yoko-san? This was probably the reason my senior seemed about 30% more excited than usual. When he was approached for help, he must have secretly been delighted. Have you been here before? My senior had a strong fondness for Yoko-san. He didn't hesitate to call her his ideal woman. So, I had kept quiet about my frequent visits since being introduced to her by my senior last summer. I didn't want to say anything to avoid any awkward conversations. No, but I had the address, I replied. Ah, I see. He nodded in agreement as I pressed the intercom button. I was feeling a bit nervous inside. The chime sounded quite fancy. The doorbell at my house made a buzzing noise recently. It had started to fail to ring, and then I heard Yoko-san's voice. Yes? It's me, I said. There was a brief silence, then the door opened, and Yoko-san appeared with a slightly uneasy expression. I'm sorry. I didn't want to rely on you if I could help it, she said. I wondered about the meaning behind her words, but I decided to think that she didn't want to inconvenience my senior. No, I don't think it'll be too much trouble. Well, leave it to us, my senior said with a smile. Yoko-san gestured for us to come in, and I smoothly took off my shoes. Then, it struck me. I tried to gauge my senior's reaction, but he seemed too ecstatic to notice. This is the bedroom, Yoko-san said with a very unpleasant expression. I felt a mix of emotions: guilt towards my senior and pity for Yoko-san. My senior, unaware of my feelings, appeared extremely restless. The room had a clean, predominantly light pink color scheme. Of course, it had air conditioning, and it looked tidier than usual. Ah, did you tidy up? My senior glanced at me, and Yoko-san shot me a fierce look. Once again, I found myself thinking, you said you've never been here before. I decided to ignore my senior. So, Yoko-san, why did you call my senior? Yoko-san pondered for a moment and then spoke. Yesterday, while I was sleeping, I suddenly experienced sleep paralysis. After that, the scenery started to change. I realized I was in a dark place, and through a gap, I could see my room. My room, but from a lower vantage point. Intuitively, I thought, this must be under the bed. It sounds like your vision got scrambled, probably, my senior said, now wearing an excited smile as if he had forgotten about the previous conversation. This was his usual expression when he tackled paranormal phenomena. Yoko-san had an incredible ability to see things, far beyond my senior's already impressive spiritual abilities. She could see ghosts, glimpse the future, or peer into the past. And, as in this case, she could even see through someone else's perspective. However, it seemed to happen accidentally, and she couldn't control it. That's why my senior called it seeing, rather than sight. He considered this instability to be one of its fascinating aspects. But isn't that concerning? It seems like a matter for the police, I said. Yoko-san shook her head. Come on, you can tell just by looking. Look, can you see any gap under the bed where someone could fit? In response to my senior's comment, I peered under the bed. Indeed, there was hardly a gap, not even 10 centimeters wide. Someone who can fit in such a small space is not the kind of person the police can handle, Yoko-san sighed. That's why I consulted with this person. She glanced at my senior. My senior fidgeted, clearly pleased to be relied upon. But perhaps Yoko-san didn't want to rely on him. She might have even been reluctant to let us into her bedroom. Now, the problem is what to do next. We don't know when or what this person might do. So, for now, let's try to recreate yesterday's situation. In other words, are you suggesting that Yoko-san sleeps here? I didn't miss the slight twitch in Yoko-san's cheek. While my senior looked excited, I leaned in to whisper to Yoko-san, I'm here too, you know. I think my senior is probably more interested in ghosts than you are. Please understand. I know you're worried. Yoko-san nodded. I'll change, so please step out for a moment. Reluctantly, my senior and I left the bedroom. So, senior, what's the real deal here? Do you have any clues? I asked. My senior wore a slightly troubled expression. Honestly, I have no idea. I can't see or sense anything at all. It might be something quite unusual or a very high-level entity. I was taken aback. This was the first time someone had eluded my senior's senses completely. Disturbing thoughts started to fill my mind. However, my imagination was interrupted by Yoko-san's voice. I've finished changing, she said. She wore a simple, light pink pajama set matching the room. Yeah, it was cute. I could tell that my senior was getting a bit excited again. Alright, I'm going to sleep. Keep an eye out, Yoko-san said. She lay on her back in the bed for a while but eventually turned on her side, facing the wall. Well, I guess she was worried about someone's gaze. After a little while, she started making small, regular breathing sounds. It seemed she had fallen asleep. Her sleep appeared to be peaceful. Hey, when did you come here? Once my senior confirmed she had fallen asleep, he whispered quietly. We met by chance nearby before. And you suggested having tea, so. It was awkward. I wasn't lying, and there wasn't anything particularly special about our meetings. Just once? No, we met a few more times after that. Why did you? Suddenly, there was a popping sound. A loud noise followed by two smaller ones. Despite the considerable volume, Yoko-san continued sleeping. Senior, what was that just now? My senior was already on his feet, clenching his fist. Wake her up. What? Wake up, Yoko. Do it now. Taken aback by the sudden shout, I reflexively stood up. Yoko-san, please wake up. I grabbed her shoulders and shook her vigorously. There was no response. She won't wake up. My senior's expression changed from seriousness to a dark smile. That's fine then. Carry her out of this room or something. I'll take care of the rest. I slid my hands beneath Yoko-san's knees and armpits, lifting her up. I left the smiling senior and the hand visible from under the bed behind as I exited the bedroom. I continued out into the corridor, where I gently set Yoko-san down. What had I seen earlier under the bed? A hand with a muddy hue, and one eye visible through a narrow gap. Did my senior figure out what it was? Yoko-san, please wake up. Yoko-san, I pleaded. Even though Yoko-san must have jostled quite a bit when I carried her, she didn't react at all. Her face was deathly pale, and she looked like she was lifeless. Only her faint breathing reassured me of her continued existence. I sat down in front of Yoko-san and waited. Just waited, hoping either my senior or Yoko-san would triumph over whatever it was. After what felt like an eternity, the front door creaked open. I quickly stood up and rushed to open it. My senior, who had been leaning on the inside of the door, collapsed inward. Hey, senior, what happened? He leaned on me, both arms hanging down. I drove it away, but I'm at my limit. Is there a hospital nearby? I noticed numerous bruises on both his arms, and his right middle and pinky fingers were twisted in an odd direction. Are you okay? What should we do? Should I call an ambulance? My senior seemed more severely injured than I had initially thought, and I was starting to panic. While I was hesitating, my senior gazed at Yoko-san. She hasn't woken up. Sometimes it happens like this. Ah, it hurts. Well, it's just my arms. I can walk to the hospital. It's probably 10 p.m. now. They're likely closed. He staggered as he walked away, and when I tried to follow him, my senior stopped me. If you're gone too, Yoko will be surprised. I'll either stay with her until she wakes up, or she's probably fine now, so you can put her back in bed. As my senior left, he had an unusually masculine and heroic air about him. The next day, I met my senior in the hospital waiting room. His arms were wrapped in bandages. Somehow, my right index finger, middle finger, and pinky were broken. The index finger looks okay, but the middle and pinky fingers are fractured in several places, so it might take a while to heal. He said with a grin, waving his right hand. Senior, what happened last night? What was that thing in the end? I asked. My senior chuckled. Let me explain. First, about that thing. In simple terms, it was Yoko. With his relatively uninjured left arm, he rummaged through his pants pocket and pulled out something wrapped in paper. It was a small sphere, about 1 centimeter in diameter. Well, it's just a marble, but this is what that monster turned into. Don't give me that dumb look, it's true. For instance, though, my senior unwrapped the paper. Inside was a translucent light blue marble with a pattern I recognized from somewhere on the wrapping paper. This is what rolls under the bed. You glimpse it glinting in a random moment. Your brain associates it a glowing marble, an eye, a face, a person. He continued playing with the marble on his palm. Then, the imagination becomes clearer. It connects to the urban legend of a person under the bed. If the person who imagines it is a bit Well, different from the norm. Yeah, just slightly closer to that kind of entity than a regular human. That imagination gets caught and becomes real. That's how it works. I processed the information in my head. So, Yoko-san saw the marble, imagined the person under the bed, and it became reality? Is that even possible? I mean, how do you get rid of something like that? And did it really happen? My senior's grin widened. Realization means it's on the same level as me. There's no chance against an imagination-based adversary, but if you're in the same realm, anything is possible. I told you, this is an eye. His eye. I yanked it out. He gestured to his injured arm. This injury happened because it resisted. I reached under the bed, had my fingers twisted and broken by some unknown entity, but I still managed to gouge out his eye. It's safe to say this person is far from ordinary. In the beginning, I thought it only existed in Yoko's world. That guy, how should I put it, has access to higher realms. So, if you're inside it, you can't win, he added. I couldn't quite grasp everything he was saying, but one thing was clear: these two were on a completely different level. Up to this point, it seemed like the story would end with my senior and the others being amazing. However, there's an unfortunate incident that happened afterward. Hey, there's something I want to ask you, my senior said solemnly after finishing his explanation. Well, if I can help, I replied, considering I had worked for their sake this time, and my senior was injured, so there might be something I could do. Listen, I'll get straight to the point. I didn't have any lewd intentions or anything like that. It's just that, well, I saw it, and, you know. My senior fumbled in his pocket. No way. This had to be a joke. I accidentally brought this back with me. Can you return it for me? Just say you took it by mistake. You won't get into much trouble, my senior said. He pulled out a piece of clothing, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the same pale pink, simple, yet cute item. Women's underwear bottoms. After much internal struggle, I realized that I had earned a certain level of goodwill through my efforts and injuries. And it wouldn't be wise to ruin it all for a momentary lapse in judgment. So, with a disgruntled expression, I reluctantly accepted it. When I returned it and Yoko-san received it, we both blushed, and we spent some awkward days after that. That's the end of the story of my senior and the person under the bed, or so I thought. But there's more to the story about my senior going to the hospital and putting Yoko-san back into bed. Did you go? I was startled by a sudden voice from behind. Yoko-san looked at me with a dazed expression. Oh, you're awake. It seems like everything's fine now, so please go back to your room. I'll take care of my senior, I said. Take me with you, please. I can't muster the strength, Yoko-san said weakly. I lifted Yoko-san up again and asked, if you don't want this, please let me know. She shook her head faintly. I actually want to help that person like this, but when I get close to him, I see things. Unpleasant things. Oh, I see. Did you see what I was just thinking about? I asked. I had been thinking that my senior should be the one enjoying this, as he had worked the hardest this time. Not really. I had a vague sense of what you might be thinking about. But to be honest, it doesn't bother me that much. I kinda like being straightforwardly confronted like that, Yoko-san replied. That was a relief. It seemed like my senior wasn't disliked. I had always been concerned about that. After all, it was my senior who I fell for initially, no matter what I might think now. So, if you don't see unpleasant things, does that mean you'd be okay dating my senior or something? It was hard to say. And I wondered if my emotions were playing a part. Well, at first, that was the case. But now, I have someone else I love, Yoko-san replied calmly. Ouch. Her words pierced my heart. I had to be careful not to let my erratic heartbeat give me away. I convinced myself that it was just sympathy for my senior. That's what I told myself. I see. Well, those things happen, right? I stammered. Alright then, I'll be heading to my senior's room. Even after placing Yoko-san on the bed, my heart was pounding. I didn't have any special feelings for Yoko-san. She was my senior's crush, the person he had liked for a long time, and Yoko-san didn't dislike my senior either. But I feel like you might be misunderstanding something. The person I love is... I stopped myself. I couldn't ask who it was. I quickly shut the bedroom door. But right after the door closed, I heard her say it. The person I love is you. How was it? People's feelings can sometimes generate great power and, in certain cases, even manifest themselves. As an example of this, we also discussed the topic of cursed items in the video. Please watch it by clicking on the URL in the description for more details. If you have any other stories you would like me to introduce or any questions about the stories, please leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next episode.